Hi, how are you?
Very good, thanks, Mr. Mubu. How are you doing?
Well, I'm okay. How is South Africa, and how are you coping during this period of lockdown?
South Africa is upcast in the physical weather side of things, but also with emotions. Having had our lockdown period extended by another 2 weeks, so it's 35 days of lockdown will definitely get us into the mood of things, I suppose.
Fantastic. Tsuro, thank you so much for joining me for this series of podcasts. We were talking about the 12 universal skills needed for one to be successful. So today we are going to be centered on the skill of emotional intelligence. So to our listeners today I'm joined by Mr. Tsuro. Tsuro is one of the 2018's top 10 global future leaders recognized by the United States-based HR.com's Leadership Excellence Awards. He is a corporate trainer by profession with various other commitments as managing director of the eHub and entrepreneurship hub, operations director at Team Factor, and branding consultant at Beacon Brands. He is currently serving as the chairman of the Toastmasters Leadership Institute of Southern Africa, fulfilling his devotion in the development of communication and leadership skills in the continent. So you're doing some amazing work in Southern Africa.
Thank you very much. It's a privilege to be serving in many of the parts that I have found myself privileged to be a part of.
Fantastic. Let's get the ball rolling. So to get things started, what's your definition of emotional intelligence?
Okay, if you ask my definition of emotional intelligence, I'll tell you as simple as something the feeling of peace, your ability to find peace. But if we're to open that up a little bit, emotional intelligence, which many people refer to as EQ, is our ability and the skill to understand, apply, use, or manage your own emotions in a positive way, which eventually also impact others, as well as almost foster relationship amongst people.
Fantastic. My next question is, since this series of podcasts is trying to connect the link between certain skills and success, do you believe there's a link between emotional intelligence as a skill and the ability of one to then become successful in their own way?
There's without a doubt, I do believe there is a link. In fact, I think it was a week or two ago, I was doing some research relating to emotional intelligence and some of the well-known leaders that we have in this global space, and in that I bumped into a statistic that suggests that emotional intelligence is almost a 33% direct correlation to successful individuals or successful leaders. And I do then look into it, if I look into it, into my settings, into my surroundings, into the people that I'm engaged with, into people who I have come to work with, I can definitely say there is a positive relationship where you've got successful people and success in an overall center of manner, and you also find that those people have a greater level of emotional intelligence. So yes, there is a direct link in my own understanding and belief.
Wow. Okay, no, that's good. So at least we are on track. And
I wasn't about to throw you off, so definitely there is you're done enough research to learn that there is that direct link.
I'm waiting for one of those podcasts where I'm going to be told, no, you know what, there isn't any link. Let's stop this.
Well, clearly with you've already done your research, so you're not likely to get that unless if you ask someone about, is there any direct relationship to being angry and being successful, then yeah, you'll find that answer. So just choose carefully what your question would be, and you'll find the answer that you're looking for.
Okay, no, that's good. So we are at very I'm trying to avoid difficult stage, but we find ourselves um, going through this lockdown period, and issues to do with emotional intelligence are sort of like coming very alive and very important to us as individuals. How can people improve their emotional intelligence during this period?
There are various ways that people can improve their emotional intelligence, and I actually believe that we are at the very pivotal part of our time in as individuals, as people in society, where we've got the privilege of actually coming back to the ground and understanding what it is that we are working towards. It was unheard of that people at this stage in time, for especially in this part of the world, in Africa or in the southern part of the Africa, where people would wake up and be indoors all day for a day, let alone a week, let alone for the next 3 weeks, as many people are. But we've got an opportunity to identify, ask, search, and really look within to identify ourselves. Apparently, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. So, first of all, that is, I think, the foundation of anything relating to the journey towards being emotionally intelligent. And we've got an opportunity to reflect through either techniques like meditation, through techniques like engaging yourself in various spaces where you develop yourself by understanding what you are, what you stand for, actually understanding how people perceive you. So that opportunity is presented itself at this point in time, where you've got an opportunity to zen in and really look within and identify who you are. And I think that would help with more or less getting to a point where we understand what we do and what we represent as individuals. I give an example to say, you know, very few of us, I don't know if you would fall into the category of the very few, but very few of us at least even allow ourselves of 5 minutes to just ask ourselves those questions. How are you feeling, Delorne? How are you feeling, Andrew, each day? And because our lives are so busy, there's so many things that are happening around, right and around us, we don't have that opportunity to really delve deep into who we are. And I think that's the very first step that many people could take to just try and identify and learn and develop their emotional intelligence.
Wow, you really went into depth with that, and your response is sort of like linked to my second question, which is I
Mm-hmm.
like your statement where you say knowing yourself is the journey of all wisdom. So I would like to believe there is again a link between self-awareness and, in fact, self-awareness is one of the elements of emotional intelligence. So
That's right.
people sometimes they make mistakes in terms of how they treat others or what they do because they do not literally know that maybe they're making a mistake or they're doing something wrong. They are not really self-aware. So could you drill down on the aspect to do with self-awareness on how as an individual awareness?
So I think one of the quotes that really make me love the aspect of self-awareness is where we get to accept the following. Anyone can become angry. That is easy. But to be angry with the right person, to the right degree, at the right time, for the right purpose, and in the right way, that is not easy. And many of us will want to justify why we are angry. We want to justify our emotions. We don't want to accept that us, perhaps just by something could be wrong with our positioning of our anger. And if we are unable to do that, we almost don't realize the impact that we are having on the outer side. Now, as humans or as people, we are said to be gregarious. We affect one another. We what I do is going to affect the person next to me, the community around me, and so forth. So that's the spiral. So self-awareness really stems as the pivotal part, the primary, the foundation of our emotional intelligence. We are facing a situation where, as an individual, do you know who you are? Do you know what you stand for? Do you know what you represent? Do you know what you are there to do? Do you know your purpose? And we don't know that. How then are we going to accept who Delorne is? How then are we going to accept who John, Peter, Mary, and Susan are if we don't accept who we are ourselves? And I think that's the very beginning of what we need to look into when we look into self-awareness. And this really comes back again to the element of what drives me, what pushes me to be what I am, what strengths do I possess, or what weaknesses do I show, what opportunities are ahead of me, what threats am I facing. That personal SWOT analysis is a great tool that you could use to identify who you are and more or less identify what you can give or what you're giving to the society around you. I hope that answers your question.
Oh yes, yes, it does. It does. It was mouthful.
I'm glad it just answers your question. I tend to have some verbal diarrhea sometimes.
Well, I've been going through your YouTube channel, and I'm glad that there are a couple of very useful and insightful videos there. And I happened to come across one of the elements which you were explaining in one of your videos, where you were talking about from conflict to influence. Could you maybe shed more light on what exactly that is all about?
So when a lot of times when we're dealing with emotional intelligence, the phrase or the concept of emotional intelligence really shows itself when we are dealing with something called conflict. Now, what is conflict is when your ideas, Delorne, are different from mine, and I'm not willing to accept, or I'm not willing to compromise, or there's difference. And emotional intelligence says, or an emotionally intelligent person will say, all right, I see what your view is. I also have put my view onto the table. So now, how do we get to a point where we move on together? There's a saying that says, a man who is naked on a mountain is not a problem until someone else comes in, right? And this is the very same concept to say, Delorne, in your household, your mother had a rule to say, if you find money anywhere in this household, don't pick it up, don't touch it, it's not yours. If my mother had a different rule to say, if you find money anywhere in this household, pick it up and make it and do what you need to do. If I were to ask you whose mother is wrong, what do you think? Whose mother was wrong?
This is where emotional intelligence comes into play, isn't it?
Exactly. So we simply say now we've got to understand that in our separate or respective households, the mothers were in charge. But now if we are going to be staying together, either in the office or whether in the sporting field or whether in our clubs and societies, we now need to have a common rule. So now with this, we're simply saying, there is conflict. You've got to realize that you're going to consistently experience conflict because we come from different households or we come from different backgrounds. We've got this diversity that really strikes us. Even in one family, you've got different personalities. But as an individual, you do not have control over the next person. Whether you're the father, whether you're the mother, whether you're the boss, whether you're the leader, whether you're the manager, you don't have control over the next person. So how do we move from conflict? How do we deal with this conflict? It's starting to change our opportunity from trying to have authority over the next person to start having influence over the next person. And this is the journey with emotional intelligence. We can go deeper, but simply it's trying to remind or rewire our minds from a position where we're looking at conflict to start looking at it as an opportunity, not to assert yourself or force yourself onto a situation or to a perceived outcome, but to start influencing an outcome that is beneficial for the society.
Well, thank you so much, Tsuro, for that. Unfortunately, because of time, I won't be able to really continue with this topic. My next question now is there any advice that you'd like to give to our listeners on this topic of emotional intelligence, your parting words, or anything of that sort?
I suppose my parting words would be, if you are working towards being successful in the community, remember your success has an impact on other people. I believe a leader with no values is like a person without a backbone. What's your backbone? What are your values as a leader? And let's see them in action in the society that we are. Our continent is in dire need of leaders, and we need you to stand and serve.
The main purpose of this podcast was to trigger thought so that people really take cases to do with emotional intelligence, consultant, and again, emotional intelligence is one of the trainings that you also offer. How can people get in touch with you, corporates, individuals that would want to for other trainings?
To get a hold of me, you can do so on my website, www.andrewtsuro.com, or on any social media platform. My username is @andrewtsuro, my name and surname, and you can email me at booking@andrewtsuro.com. booking@andrewtsuro.com, and I'll be definitely happy to assist or help you start your journey with emotional intelligence or any other behavioral skill for that matter.
Andrew Tsuro, it has been a pleasure having you for this podcast. Thank you so much for spending time for being with us. Enjoy the rest of your day and the slogan period, and continue impacting lives.
It was a pleasure being here, and thank you for the privilege of sharing with your world.
Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye.